111. Of Genn and Millie, where a Gen Xer and a millennial share the strength-based perspective through which they view the world. We're your hosts, Allison and Tess. Hi, Tess.
Hi, Allie. How are you?
It's been a bit.
I feel like we've started the last few episodes with "It's been a minute," and we have lots to catch up on. But now it really has. Like, this is one of the longest gaps we've had, and we want to acknowledge that to everyone listening. We've tried to make this happen a few times, and have had to reschedule. But here we
Me
are. We
too.
made it happen. And you know what?
We
We made it happen on like a half a day margin. You have like a half a day, right, between one thing to another.
Yeah, I leave tomorrow
Yeah.
morning for Santa Fe,
Yep.
and I
And
just got back from Estes and just got back from Raleigh.
yep, exactly. So I'm like,
It's
we
as
made
if we've
it.
have we had a what is that movie where they
Freaky
switch
Friday.
places?
Uh huh. I
Yeah,
know where
have we
you're
had a
going.
Freaky Friday where I am you and now on planes all of the time?
Yeah.
I have been very, very busy,
Mm.
extraordinarily busy, busier
Wow.
than I thought. As I mentioned before, I thought I was going to be dusting plants, and right now I can hardly keep up. Um, so, more to come on that. But one of the things I'd like to ask you are your thoughts about names. Like, if you have ideas
Names.
for alleology, is great in a lot of
Oh,
ways, but it really doesn't
business
describe what I
name.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, one of them that I'm toying with is tempo.
Of course, it's musically related.
Well, it's talent, engagement, mapping, performance
Oh,
outcomes.
stop. It's an acronym too. Oh,
Well, I probably wouldn't say that, but it's just
you would
it's
have
got to
to say
be
that.
it's got to be musy for me.
Yeah.
But alleology is too.
Would
It's
it be
hard.
tempo coaching, tempo consulting?
Tempo consulting,
Tempo consultant. Okay. Hmm.
right?
That's good.
Right now, it's alleology, and the way I wanted to start this was by explaining that I literally met someone who talks more than me on my flight to Raleigh, and interestingly enough, as I was telling him about this journey of going from being part of a band my whole life to solo artist work,
Mm-hmm.
he said, "What's the name of your company?" Like, I totally, like, tell me more about
Yeah.
it. And I said, "Right now it's alleology." And he's like, "What's that mean?" And so I explain it, but that
Yeah.
doesn't explain the work that I do.
Yeah.
So I want to tell you about Croy. His name is Croy. He's probably
Croy.
your age. I'm guessing he's your age. Probably one of the more brilliant humans that I've been lucky enough to sit next to in a long time. But I come in and he does not, he's about to put his AirPods in and he
Oh.
turns to me and goes, "Hey, how are you?"
Oh no. You know, it's my worst
And
nightmare on a plane.
and we talked literally for 3 hours
Uh-huh. Of course you
about all
did.
kinds of things. And
Yep.
he has had quite an adventure. And he runs a raft, like a guide raft business in Hawaii with his
Incredible.
sister and his brother-in-law.
Wow.
They're 5 weeks in. We had a lovely dialogue and we discussed all kinds of topics, but most importantly, we discussed purpose.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
he is a big believer. I believe that Croy probably leads with adaptability.
Mm.
He believes in the here and now. He believes in the importance of living by and for his own values,
Mm-hmm.
and was a remarkable seatmate.
Mm.
We immediately connected. I've had a couple emails back and forth and texts, and
Oh my gosh.
he reminded me so much of my friend Adam. They actually look alike. And so I connected the two of them via text and shared a few resources with him. He was quite fascinated with strengths, but I'm guessing,
Mm.
if I was to guess, adaptability, woo, communication, probably some pretty high self assurance.
Mm.
And I caught some maximizer.
Mm.
So
Okay.
it reminded me that we had discussed going a little lighter here. And I will tell you that I'm showing up much lighter in just
Yeah. Yeah.
so many ways.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
it's
It makes
being in
sense.
my
I love it.
purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
for
love
sure.
that. I
And
love that.
I am loving the travel and I'm loving the freedom that I have
Yeah.
to
That's
explore.
awesome. I'm so
So we
excited.
talked about going a little lighter because the GMs over the last few months, well, typically the last few
Typically,
years
last few,
are
however, 110 episodes prior to this point, we've had a
are
few
heavy.
lighter ones, but yeah, we tend to go deep. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we do
So
go deep.
we
Go
thought
deep or
we'd
go home.
go deeper, go
So
home. Oh, there you
yeah,
go.
we're gonna go light on this episode, and we thought it would be fun to do a little bit of casual strength spotting because I think people really wonder if we do this, and in fact, yes, we
Mm-hmm.
do.
Yeah.
We listen for and we spot strengths, whether we know someone's top five or not.
Mm-hmm.
And a fun way I like to introduce this to teams is to think about fictional characters so
Yeah.
that it, maybe lightens it up a little bit. We talked about The Office.
Mm-hmm.
I first want to mention that I didn't watch The Office initially. I came into The Office slowly,
Yeah.
and I'm a big fan. And I would say a forever fan now. But we thought we'd do a little bit of casual strength spotting on some TV shows that are maybe a little more common, maybe some movies,
Yeah.
and just get in the practice of the fun of it, and maybe have our listeners shouting
Yeah.
along with
Oh my
us
gosh,
as to what
yeah.
strengths they
Get
think.
involved. I also, if there's like a fictional character that you're like, this is what I think, but I wonder what they think, let us know after this episode. Like, drop in the Insta comments or email us, let us know. And it would be fun to do like a follow up. Like, here are a few others that people suggested. But before we get into it, I wanted to actually give this example of like, you can strength spot me in this because it was actually a little bit of like this idea of when we had chatted a few weeks ago as we were originally scheduling this episode. It actually prompted the idea of doing this same exercise in class in the course I'm teaching. And so I actually applied it to, we were talking about, I'm teaching social theory, right? Sociological theory. And we're in the classics right now. And so I was teaching Max Weber, one of the founding fathers of sociology. And he has a concept of like social organization and like hierarchy based on three things: class, status, and party. So your economic conditions, your lifestyle choices, and then party, which he defines as like your power, your political and like social power that you have as an individual. And so I put up some real and some fictional characters, right? Or some real people and fictional characters. So I had them rate Obama, like how would you operationalize or define, right, knowing that these things change over the course of your life. So we acknowledge like he held office, right? He used to have like the most power arguably one could have in the political sense in the US, right? And now still has a lot of power, right? Who he backs matters in, what he says really matters, but doesn't have as much, right? And then I had them do Kanye West, um, and his recent like incredible dip of economic power because of all the brand losses due to his Semitic comments. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was a really interesting discussion. And then I went fictional and we did Pam from The Office. And because it's hard to find like real life examples of people, and I even tossed out the idea of like maybe, because I tried to find real people, but people that have like lower class and status are just like everyday people, right? Like they're not people that most people would know. So then I had to go like fictional. So then I did Pam from The Office, and then I did Issa D from Insecure. And some people knew her, so I gave a little bit of bio of each of our people, even though not assuming everyone knew everybody on the list. But it was a really really fun conversation, and I think it was, I don't know that I consciously did this, but I think it was like you throwing out the idea of like, what if we just like strength spotted fictional characters that probably was sitting somewhere in the subconscious, that when I went to go like plan
Mm-hmm.
the lecture and I'm like, what's a fun discussion question that we could really tinker with this? I was like, let's do examples. So anyway, it was we had rousing debates specifically about Pam, right? Like her husband becomes the CEO of a major athletic consulting firm in Philadelphia, right? So like her class and status change, like these things of like how these things aren't concrete or set. So and it was a really fun discussion, which makes me really excited for this discussion.
I love this. I love it. And I, on a more practical sort of real people side, I've been doing obviously some consulting work, but I have a company I'm working with in the UK, and we did a strength spotting, talent spotting. What's a moment you're proud of exercise with me on Zoom? They're in their offices. They are brilliant scientists in the climate um, arena. And we talked about like what they're naturally good at. And
Yeah.
they were strength spotting me on the call. And one
Yes.
of them said, "Oh, let me guess, you were in band." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Were you like the band mate, the one that does the," and I said, "The majorette." And he goes, "Yeah, were you that?" And I said, "Yes, a couple
Yes.
times." But it's so interesting when we give people permission
Mm-hmm.
to spot our talent,
Yeah.
to like spot our superpowers. I think most of the time people are doing what they're doing subconsciously
Yeah.
through a lens of judgment.
Yeah.
What would happen, as Don Clifton said, if we
Mm-hmm.
focused on what was right with people? And it was such a joyous conversation. I left
Mm-hmm.
that conversation more engaged and went back to the group that I was working with in person. And they were doing the same thing. Oh, there's Woo. They were showing me the jazz hands.
Yeah.
I had a great conversation too with our wild team on Wednesday. We did some wisdom keeping about symbols. I've got a great list of
Mm-hmm.
questions for you, Tess, about, what's something that what's a movie, that you're drawn to? What's a story that you're drawn to? What's a
Mm-hmm.
symbol that you're drawn to? What's a symbol that, or something that it like revolts you or repels you?
Mm.
Um, like, do you have a word that you hate? The word I
Mm-hmm.
hate is
I know.
bucket. It just, bleh.
Hmm.
And so, but tying all of that together
Yeah.
is a really beautiful sort of thread of tapestry of what that tells you about your story when it comes to
Wow.
symbolism.
That's really cool.
So there are so many symbols. Well, I think what we should do is either start with something simple like The Office,
Yeah.
or we could start with pets.
Only one of us has a pet, so if we want to string
Well,
spot George, we
I can
can.
strength, I can, well, I can strength spot George.
Yeah, go for it.
I believe that George has high intellection.
Hmm.
I believe that George has maybe some input. He seems quite curious about the world. He has
Yeah.
sort of a like head nod curiosity
Mm-hmm.
about the world. I also think that George may have a little bit of, it's not, it might be significance that's not yet mature.
Okay. Like, what do you mean by that?
Like, sort of he hasn't really quite figured out what his role is in this world,
Hmm.
but he wants to matter. I mean, if you look back at the many screenshots that we had last episode, he wants to matter.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then I'm going to guess him to have higher woo than relator, but I haven't been around him in person enough
Mm.
to know if he has
Yeah.
a blend of both. He
Yeah,
could be
that's
like our friend
interesting.
Jerlene, who has both in her top five.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's an
Tight
interesting thought.
circle.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, I mean, a circle is him and I, so we spend most of our time just the two of us. But he has a group of puppy friends at puppy preschool, that are puppy class
How
that
does he
he
show up at?
really,
How does he show up at puppy class?
um, that I don't know where intellectual gamer. I was like, he is learner. Like to me, he is a
Mm,
he picks things up really well, and then in class, there's like four of them, and so the other three will just be like playing, hanging out, wrestling like puppies do, right? And George will be sitting at the feet of the trainer because he knows the trainer has the snacks, has the treats. Like it's literally it's just like the running joke of like it does not matter what they're doing. It doesn't matter if they're wrestling and bumping into him. Like he will be looking directly up. I'll find some photos. He will be looking. It does not matter what's happening in the background. He will be looking up directly at Tim, the trainer, and because he's the treat man, you know. So he's
you
very
need to add
treat
that to
motivated.
our Insta when we publish this
Yeah,
episode.
yeah. Oh my gosh, for sure. But yeah, I would agree in many ways. I'm like, I was trying to think. He definitely loves meeting people more than he likes meeting other dogs. Loves meeting people. Um, is a very people person. So like for sure when you first said woo, I'm like, yeah, and you're right. Like, and here's where I'm like, I wonder your thoughts on this. Is there a difference between people who connect more with non-peers than peers? Of like
What a
woo.
great
I'm
question
like,
that
I
is.
don't. It just I feel like came to mind, and I'm like,
Sorry, I
oh,
just got into an existential
I
dialogue with
know, I know,
myself. My
right,
brain just went,
right.
oh,
Because like in my mind, woo, we've always described it as like expanding your social circle versus like a depth. But there's something to be said about generational differences, about seasons of life, about like you can't always achieve depth with everybody, even if it's like if they're in a certain role. Like I'm thinking like you're not going to achieve that depth with your instructor, right? Like a professor, right? But you would want to win them over if you're a student with high woo, right? But like, so I was even thinking about that, like with George. I'm like, is there? I feel like woo is much more transcendent of levels of
oh,
power and
I've
roles.
been around a woo last week, week before. Gosh, I can't keep track of my weeks, but I spent some time in Fargo with a leader who leads with woo. Her woo is so different than mine,
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
so different than mine. It's a discernment woo, where I feel like I'm just getting to the point now where woo is discerned.
Mm,
Like
okay.
people have asked me so many times, like, do you want to take it over? You want to take the test again? You should take it again. And first of all, it's
Mm,
not a test. Um, and it's
nope.
not a super fun survey. It's a really, really scientifically backed assessment that measures not only engagement, but a number of things. Anyway, I'm not going to go down that
Look
tangent.
at you go.
So I know I'm grown up, Tess. I
I'm
am.
so
It's
proud.
taken me a bit, but
I'm
I'm grown
so
up.
proud.
So when I have the opportunity to look at where woo is now, if I was to take the assessment again, I think my woo has had a little bit of burnout.
Yeah.
Like I would I would never say again, you can people with high, I used to say this, people with high relator, remember Gigi's quote, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, you're dead to me. That was her famous relator quote. And my woo quote was, fool me 1700 times and then we'll talk about it. Not anymore. Not
Okay.
anymore. I
Okay.
believe that I have become a lot more discerning of my circle, cautious about what I share, because I've been burned. And I've been burned
Yeah.
by people that I have known for a short amount of time, and I've been burned by people who I've known my whole life.
Yeah.
So I've become
Hmm.
more cautious about the woo and where I gift it. So my buddy Croy, who was seated next to me, he was like, wow, I feel like I could just talk to you. And that felt honoring to my woo
Hmm.
empathy. If I would have just spilled all kinds of info, I held myself closer to the vest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chest,
Chest.
vest. Which is it?
The chest, I believe, but I knew where
Chest?
you were going. I think it's hold
Is
myself
it chest or
closer to
vest?
my chest. I don't. Why would it be vest? I don't
Vest?
think I've always said chest. Let me look it up.
Hello, listeners. Glad you joined us because this is not going to go any direction today. Um, we also could do an entire episode on shit that people say that is not accurate.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
nip it
Yeah.
in the butt.
100%.
Do you know how many people say nip it in the butt? It is not the butt. No one nips a butt. You nip your you nip a bud, everyone. It's a bud, like a
I
bud.
didn't know that. I was saying
It's
nip it
not
in
nip
the
it in the
butt.
butt.
I'm like, I'm assuming people go
You
around
say butt?
pinching other people's butts. I don't know. I have no idea. I do not know. Okay,
Next
so
episode,
hold
phrases people say that are inaccurate.
hold close to your chest is it's better to keep or it's better to keep information close to the vest. So interchangeable. Both of them
All
have been
right,
used. So
chesty vesty, whatever it is. So
chesty
I've
vesty.
become a lot more chesty vesty. I'm a lot more keep it tight than I
Keep it
used to
tight.
be.
Keep
And
it tight.
so thank you to the humans who helped me learn that lesson, you know, many times over. I'm a little better at
Mm.
it. Veering back to the subject that we were on. So, yes, we're going to look for George in the wild and his strengths.
Yep.
Plan on me going forward on your Instagram to be hashtag woo, hashtag
Mm-hmm.
learner.
Yep. Spot him all the
Look
time.
for that.
Yep. Yep. You sure can.
I've got a I have a grand pup. I don't like saying it, but I will. I have a grand pup. His name is Pivo, and I dearly love him. I mean, we have conversations via FaceTime. Lauren does call me the G word, much to my disappointment, but I do like to talk to Pivo and ask him about how things are going. Pivo, I believe, is so young. He's still in the Strengths Explorer stage.
Mm-hmm.
He's not yet ready
Yeah.
for Strengths Finder.
Mm-hmm.
He is discoverer, discoverer, discoverer. Those are Pivo's top three strengths. Um, I'm not sure that he has woo or presence because he just doesn't always like to be,
Yeah.
but he for sure has competition.
Mm.
He is out to win attention from others.
Mm.
And the poor guy, I mean, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. He's coming around.
Oh my
But
gosh.
he just like, for example, it's raining. Lauren has a doghouse now for him because they have him like both inside and outside. He's supposed to be a farm dog.
Yeah, so he's supposed to be
And
outside. Yeah.
G Mahir said that you cannot let that dog be outside. He needs to be inside. Like he, as a puppy, he would have wandered off, or a coyote would have, who knows. So anyway, he's been in and out. So he has this giant enclosed feature that I call the cage. It's not that bad, everyone. It's not that bad, but that's what I call it. And
Yeah.
inside he has a little doghouse. So when it rains, he can go in it. He can't figure that out. So he got under he was trying to get under his
Stop.
dog bed.
Oh my god.
He was trying to get under his dog bed instead of going into the little place that had the little roof for him.
Oh my god.
Um,
That's so
yes.
funny. Oh my
So
gosh.
Pivo is working on
Pivo.
intellection is
Yeah.
not going to be one of his
Yeah.
top five
Okay.
for
Okay.
sure. All right.
That's
So
so
back to the
funny.
subject at hand. Let's go right into the office.
Okay.
Let's use Pam as an
Let's
example.
use Pam as an example.
Get your strengths cards out,
Yep.
listeners.
Hmm.
I'm going to say this is going to be my guesstimation. I believe that Pam leads with harmony.
That was going to be my thought too. Just think about
But with
all of the
harmony,
crap that she has to deal with Michael. I mean, she just rolls with it. She's like, whatever, we'll try and manage him as effectively as possible.
she can manage any
Yeah.
heated, heavy conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the times where what was the name of the boss, Michael's boss?
Um, oh my gosh, people are gonna be yelling it at us.
When he
I
would
know. Yeah, yeah,
call,
yeah, 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 yeah.
when
Well,
he
at
would
first
call
it
and
was
Pam would like
Jan,
have to dance around. Yes.
and then
Oh,
I
for
can
sure.
picture him. I can picture him. What's his name?
Jan has self-assurance.
Hmm. David
Let's
Wallace.
skirt
I
right.
should have known that.
Yeah, David Wallace.
David
When David
Wallace.
Wallace would call,
Yep.
poor Pam is like navigating the waters.
Yep.
So I think high harmony, also high positivity.
Yep. Yep. I can see that.
Relator,
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely could see that. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd also say some consistency. She's
Mm-hmm.
very fair.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say I don't know if it's consistency or I was trying to go back and forth like responsibility. Like she's super reliable. Remember how like
Hmm.
the world fell apart when she tried to move into a sales position and Erin came on board, or when she left for art school they had that temporary person in there, and yeah. um I was also gonna note, and I don't know, right, I like hate to, and here's the interesting thing, I'd be curious of your thoughts, like in some ways a natural inclination because she is an artist would be to say ideation. But I also think about the art that we have seen her create, where she takes inspiration from the things around her. So it's not necessarily a
Hmm.
ideation in the purest sense of that which thinks outside the box. Because right, ideation is the closest strength to creativity generally, right? Like it's thinking differently outside the box, resisting normal structures. So normally, like people that I've encountered that are very artistic have high ideation. So I just associate it as like the creativity, the artist, in a lot of ways as a strength. But I also think about like the mural. I think about the art show that we saw of like the
Hmm.
picture of the building, right? And a picture of the stapler, like it was just very like things that she would see. Like she took inspiration from the world around her, and so in some ways, at first I was going to say ideation, and then the more I thought about it, I said no. I actually don't think so. Maybe it's like a connectedness of seeing the beauty in the little
Yeah.
things around her.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. And then pulling that broader thread.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe some high discipline.
Yeah.
You're going to have to
Okay.
help me with the characters. So who came after Pam? Who was
In
the secretary,
it
office
was
assistant after Pam?
like the most Aaron.
Erin.
Yeah, Aaron.
Okay. So Erin, very different from Pam.
Very
But I think Erin had high individualization.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Very high positivity too.
Hmm.
Um, like I think about one of my favorite gifts ever to send to somebody is the celebration one when she is like the bottle of champagne with Dwight and Michael. Yeah. Hmm. Um,
I also see some discipline with her.
how so?
There was like a structure to her that I
Oh
feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
she
Okay.
was just almost rigid in ways, but it was like she was practicing stepping out of that
Yeah.
rigidity into more of
Yeah.
that individualization and
I love
positivity.
that. Okay, so there's this episode, it actually made me think of this. There's this episode where I think it's the episode Michael leaves, maybe? I'm trying to remember. Where Pam is in the office administration position, but she has to go to do something. So she's out. And so she asks Aaron to field a delivery of pens. Do you remember this? So she says, I'm having a shipment of pens coming in. Will you receive it, right? And and Aaron is like, she puts so much pressure on herself. She's like, okay, the pens arrived, but do I unbox them? Do I put them on the shelf? Oh, or is that the office administrator position? Like, I don't want to step on Pam's toes. So she like unboxes them, and then she freaks out when somebody walks in that's new because she thinks it's Pam. She's like, I wasn't doing anything, and then she starts putting the pens back into the box that they came in when they shipped them. And so just like I think that's something about discipline of like wanting to do things right and correctly. Um,
Yes.
yeah, that's so funny.
So I want to dance around a few others, but I want
Yeah.
Dwight to be last.
Okay, okay. Oh
Okay.
my gosh, okay.
So Creed.
Creed. How do we even define Creed?
I feel like maybe maybe there's some restorative there. I mean, in his own way, he was dealing with problems.
Yeah. He's someone that I could see having a really lethal combination of ideation futuristic. We're like the
My favorite is when, they're interviewing him about what he does, when he does, and then he's like, "What do I do here?"
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep. So not high responsibility, not high discipline, which we know. But I'm thinking about this like ideation futuristic blend that's just so abstract and so not in the normal confines. And maybe this futuristic of like so far futuristic that it isn't even in the bounds of where we're at. I don't know.
Maybe focus. I mean, he was so focused on not working.
But also Creed Bratton dot the Word doc of his blog. It's just a Word document. Oh my gosh. Okay, who's next? Let's keep going so we can move on to
All right,
others.
so Angela.
Angela, discipline.
Oh, for sure, discipline, and I'd say
Mm-hmm.
high relator. You
Yeah.
wrong her, and you
Yeah.
are dead.
You
You're
screwed it.
actually dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe some strategic.
Yeah, I can see that. Yep. Um, self assurance.
Yeah. How about Andy?
Oh, Andy.
I'd say
Um,
competition.
competition. I'm thinking of like pre and post yacht ride Andy, right? Like Andy as we first knew him, and then Andy when he sailed on the boat later when he was manager and just like dipped out and worked for months. There's something about his Cornell that screams significance, right?
Yes.
Status,
Yes.
that kind of stuff. But then I'm also like, when he comes back with a white boy dread and playing the bongos, I'm like, there's something
Yes.
about connectedness, right? That just like,
And there's like, right beneath the surface is a lot of anger.
yeah. I
One of
mean,
my favorite episodes is when they hide his phone in the ceiling and he just puts his fist right
yep,
through the
right through
wall.
the wall. Yep, yep.
Yes, I would say Andy also has some high command for that team.
Ah, yeah, yeah,
He probably
sure.
has some high command. Um, but yeah, for sure, significance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh man,
All right, Toby,
Toby. Oh, poor Toby. Oh,
in election, I think.
yeah, yeah. I could see it. He just
I mean,
keeps
he's
talking about the Strangler.
maybe
Scranton
context,
Strangler forever. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that context. What was I thinking?
deliberative.
I was thinking includer
Oh,
specifically because he's like,
oh yeah,
I mean, he's always on. I mean, not that I really feel for Toby, right? Like, do we ever all
right.
feel for Toby? But at the same time, I'm
Just
like,
his voice.
he's just,
Michael, you
yeah,
can't say that. You
Michael.
can't do that, Michael.
Oh man.
All right, Stanley.
Oh, my favorite. Stanley, my favorite character. Oh, let's see. Consistency.
Yeah. I also think some adaptability.
Ooh, interesting blend.
There's a fairness, but also a whatever. Like
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yep.
you know, things happen, there's a fire, okay,
Yeah.
everything's gonna be all right.
Yeah. His number 34 of activator jumps up to number 1 on pretzel day.
Also, we could do rating, are these humans engaged, disengaged, or actively
Highly
disengaged?
disengaged. Highly disengaged. He is stomping on the gum and pressing it into the carpet.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, highly disengaged.
Oh my gosh.
Ryan.
Oh man. He's again one of those characters that goes through 12 transformations, right? Because he comes in as the intern, ends up working for corporate, and then gets addicted to coke. Like, and
Yeah,
then,
he's got competition
like,
out of balance, I think.
mm,
Like always in comparison.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like when he dates Kelly, he's not even interested in Kelly until Kelly's with somebody else.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good. Yep, that's a good thought. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um, and I think probably some significance out of balance too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we're rating we're just guessing their strengths, not whether they're in balance or out of
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah. Yeah. But at some point, I'm like, some of these people are so out of balance that all we can do is think about strengths out of balance.
On that note, Meredith,
Oh gosh, knew she was coming. Woo.
where does heavy drinker go?
Woo.
You think Meredith has woo?
Are you serious?
Oh, I don't see woo in Meredith.
Anytime there's a
You,
party? Come on.
well, there's
Come
a difference
on.
between I need alcohol and I'm
She's
actively
the
disengaged.
no, the energy. You can have woo and be actively
Oh,
disengaged
yeah.
at work. I'm
Well,
sorry.
booze-induced woo is a different kind of woo.
Yeah. Maybe she's woo when she's drunk, I guess. I don't know.
Um, I feel like she has some input. There's a lot of questions that she asks.
Yeah, you're right. Nobody listens to my response to them, but she does
No.
ask quite a few questions. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
You know what? She has self assurance, and I credit her for that because her life is a dumpster fire the entire show, and she
mhm,
just rolls with it.
mhm.
Like when they go to deliver the Dundies, and they wake up everyone. Michael's training his replacement, right? They go and they wake up everybody at home, And everybody reacts, and so their personality, right? Stanley's like, get the hell out, right? Jim and Pam are like carrying their kids, right? And then they go to knock on Meredith's, and it of course looks like a trash home, right? And they knock and knock, and she doesn't answer, and then all of a sudden she comes up in her night clothes from the night walk of shame up to the front of the door. And she's like, "Oh, what Dundee?" And she like responds in the most positive way out of anybody, right? And she's, walk of shaming. So, oh my gosh.
How about Kelly? I think Kelly
Oh,
has woo.
Kelly, Kelly,
So
Kelly.
woo,
Woo. I would say positivity.
empathy.
Yeah. Um.
Also some significance. There's a
Oh,
lot of these
yeah.
characters
Yeah,
that
yeah,
have
yeah.
significance
I
that's showing
literally
up in
was
different
thinking that
ways.
too. Like when they do the minority business woman thing too, especially. Like, yeah.
How about Daryl?
Mm. Daryl. He's adaptability. He's got
For
adaptability
sure.
high. Yeah. Um. I feel like not only him as an individual, but also the way that he works with the warehouse crew. There's a developer in there.
Yes. Yes, agreed. And some focus. I mean,
Yeah.
even not working
Yeah.
is a focus.
Yep.
Like the deliberate not working
Yeah. 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 For sure.
requires focus.
Yep.
Okay, and the one we've all been waiting for,
The one we've all been waiting for. Dwight. Oh,
Dwight.
he's the best. Oh my
Do you
god.
want to say at the same time what we think his number one is? Are you ready?
I don't know that I'm ready.
Oh, Tess.
I know you're gonna be like, oh my
Think about his where he keeps his pens.
god. So you're gonna say, okay, one, two, three.
Yeah, are you ready? What you
Yeah.
think his number one
Well,
is?
based
One,
on what I
two, three. Oh,
dis. Oh my god.
we are an absolute shit show on
We are.
here
We
today.
are.
Sorry, kids. Put your hands over your ears. Are you going to even publish this episode?
I know at this point I'm like, I don't know. Um,
I
there's a
think that
reason
Dwight
that
has
we have the deep conversation. But anyway, okay, sorry, go ahead. What do you think Dwight leads with? Number one.
analytical.
Okay, I can see that. Yep. That,
Yeah?
yeah, for sure, for sure. I was gonna say analytical intellection, um, discipline when you said the pens, but I was also thinking about his space, like the whole ruler pushing Jim's chords to the other side, right? Of like, this is my space. Wanting things a
For
certain
sure,
way.
self assurance.
Yes, 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 yes. There's a lot of influencing themes in this crew. I can't
Yeah.
imagine
And so
how
when you
hard
think about,
Michael Scott's job was to manage them.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So what do you think Michael's strengths are?
Mm,
I think Michael has maximizer.
really?
I think he has belief.
He
Yes.
has belief. He has belief high. 100%.
Yeah, I think Michael wants excellence in his own way.
In his own conception of it, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah.
Achiever. Um, there was never a lack of like being at work.
Yeah. No, he loved it. Yeah. Yeah, that's that belief. And then I think there's something like I think about, maybe it isn't quite, but I'm thinking like activator with him with like the high energy, the ideas, like let's do this, and people try and talk him out of it,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah, probably high activate. Like I don't know, he's standing on the roof.
that episode. If you're
And
sad, Michael.
to, and Jim, of course, I think Jim has high individualization. His ability
Mm,
to take on and when he imitates Dwight is so good. And then just the way that he thinks about what people need and his gift giving
yeah.
to Pam,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and how he tells the
Mm,
story of the two of them. Um,
yeah.
might have high communication too. He's a pretty gifted storyteller.
Yeah. Okay. Yay. Love it. Okay.
The way this all came about was The Bear.
Yes.
And you haven't seen it yet, but
Yeah.
I would encourage you strongly to watch it.
So just like pick a couple characters. What do you think?
Carmi is the lead character. It's a heavy show, Tess, and it's
Yeah.
been hard for me. I'm only one season in because I just
Okay.
couldn't emotionally handle it. Um, Carmi, and I'm not giving anything away, but he takes over his brother's restaurant, which is a
Oh.
downtown Chicago, crazy busy. Like I'm so sensory sensitive that part of the reason I have a hard time watching it is because there's so much going on,
Yeah.
and it's loud, and there's anxiety, and there's screaming, and there's quick motion.
Mm-hmm.
They're running a restaurant,
Yeah.
but Carmi is on his own sort of life exploration, and he's working with his sister, and he's working with his cousin. And so I think that if you look at the characters, you can see where these are strengths being over indexed. Everybody's in high anxiety, everybody's in high pressure.
Yeah.
No one is taking care of themselves.
Mm.
Um, I don't know when anybody sleeps, and, questionable drug use throughout the show.
Mm.
So I think Carmi has high competition. I think
Yeah.
he has high achiever. I think he has high activator. Um, but when you get into this show, you see like what it means to see people disengaged at work
Yeah.
and how that
Mm.
shows up and how that impacts others. And I think like any show, whether it's The Office, which is fun and parody,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a show like The Bear, which is a really deep, like almost emotionally painful dive,
Mm.
we can associate or connect with those characters in a way because they're not real.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can talk about them as if they are real, but it's almost easier for us to be able to align because
Mm.
there's you can get in emotionally, but then you can leave it there because it's fiction.
Yeah. Mm.
And this show has been difficult for me. And then I've had all of these people in my life say, okay, in season two, there's this whole episode where it's all about the family, and
Mm.
have you watched it, Allison? Because heads up, that's going to be hard for you.
Mm.
Whenever anybody says that to me,
Mm.
I'm then I almost like have to take a break
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
prepare.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about, how we can, and it's a lot easier for people to spot strengths of like The Office or The
Yeah.
Bear than it is for them to sit across the
Yeah.
boardroom like this team I just worked with and have a conversation about, oh, I see maximizer in you.
Mm-hmm.
That might be how that looks when it's out of balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That might be what it looks like when you're stressed or under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it's helpful to have conversations with people about fictional characters. Um,
Yeah.
as I mentioned, we were talking about symbols in our. I'm still very busy with Wild, and we do Wednesday Wild gatherings, and we talked about symbols, and we talked about the story of the Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
There's so much
Yeah.
symbolism in that story. It's a myth, right? It
Mm-hmm.
falls into all kinds of, there's hierarchy that's represented there,
Yeah.
there's family dynamics. Um, Dorothy, there's so much happening.
Yeah.
I would challenge our listeners to think about whatever they're watching, or
Mm.
maybe you want to go down the path of Wizard of Oz. What strengths do you notice? What engagement levels do you notice? All the concepts that we talk about here on Genn and Millie, where do you see them both in fiction,
Yeah.
um, or things that are closer to real life? But where are you noticing them? To me, the more you get immersed in this language,
Yeah.
the more it just becomes part of everyday strength spotting. So I can be next to Croy and engage him in a way that he gets to use his communication and feel
Yeah.
seen and heard.
Yeah.
And if I leave him just in those 3 hours feeling more seen and heard,
Yeah.
that's what I want to do. Like that's
Yeah.
I think I have really come into that place for me, Tess, of the intersections of the circles.
Yep. Ikigai. Mm-hmm.
Everywhere I go, is a potential community.
Mm.
Even for a plane ride, that's a container, that's a community that. So I think any container is an opportunity for me to be at my in my purpose and at my best. Um, just like any container that you're in, Tess, like this one where you're having to figure out technology on the fly.
Yep. But
So,
yeah, I think it's
have
such a
you
good
seen
thought.
the?
No, go ahead. We can't see. Okay, FYI, if you're listening, we had a technology
Oh my
disruption a moment
goodness.
ago. We're just gonna name that because now Allie and I cannot see each other. And normally when we record, we join each other on Zoom so we can cue into nonverbals, and we can't do that right now. So,
So
hence
there,
the
you
no, you go. So,
you will hear a crack of thunder here in a second. So we have a quick little storm that's coming through, which I think has knocked out my internet. But one of the things that I was laughing about, have you listened to Julia? Oh my gosh, what's her last name? Elaine from Seinfeld. Uh,
I'm looking it up. Dreyfus. Julie
yes, she has
Dreyfus.
a wonderful podcast, and she did an interview, a phenomenal interview with Jane Fonda. And in
Mm.
the middle of the interview, they completely lost everything.
Oh my
And instead
gosh.
of editing it, like they lost like power and there was a storm or
Oh my
something,
gosh.
but instead of like starting over, she just said, "This is what happens."
Yeah.
And so this
Mm.
is what happens.
Yep.
And I'm the Jane Fonda in this situation for sure. Um,
Oh my
so
gosh.
I do think any opportunity to look for and spot strengths in people,
Yeah.
whether it's
Yeah.
fictional or real life, and giving them space to be authentic is something we all should do more of.
Mm. Yeah. And
So if you can practice strength spotting by watching The Office and looking
yeah.
for Michael's, what would the best boss, world's best boss award indicate other than significance?
Yeah. A self assigned world's best boss. Mug. Oh
Right.
my gosh. And I think the thing that I want to note too, so I love this kind of challenge and task for people, and the thing that I want to note is you might be like, well, you all can do it because you know strengths well. And I feel like that's a really common response that we get from people. But even if you heard, like, there were people that we disagreed with, right? We had different, there isn't a right or wrong answer, especially, right? Someone will take their assessment, you will have their top five, or someone could theoretically. So, in some ways, with real people, there is a little bit of a, you know, you can spot something and it might not be exactly right, right? A lot of people will spot discipline in me, which is probably not discipline, but a combination of other things. And so, but with fictional characters especially, like it's more of a challenge to really um, like put your experience, I don't want to say like put your experience to the test, but it's like a fun way that's like low stakes to continue to have this language at the
Mm-hmm.
forefront, make it fun. Like this, you know, this conversation didn't go as deep as we normally did, and it was kind of intentional, and we were both like, oh, maybe that wasn't like our best conversation, but at the same time it's like it was fun, we enjoyed it, we laughed a lot. And it's just a testament to like the fact that you can exercise and kind of do work to familiarize yourself and become more comfortable with this language, like through the context of fictional characters. Like that's an opportunity, um, yeah, to continue to learn, to continue to grow, and do it with someone that also maybe knows a little bit about strengths. And even between the two of us, you saw our disagreements and how we kind of went back and forth on a few people. And clearly, we named much more than people's top five, or when it was in and out of balance, and things like that. So. Yeah, any thoughts, Allie?
Um, you're going to have to manage my sound, is my first thought.
I'm like generally that's
Also,
always always a something.
I I think it's interesting that you and I perform at our best when the content is serious.
Hmm.
I think that's something to note. It
Mm-hmm.
is something I greatly appreciate about our friendship,
Yeah.
about the way we've worked together for years. We operate at our best when the topic is serious.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, we can laugh. And if you add wine, for sure we can laugh.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we are both in intentional places in
Mm-hmm.
our life where we are serious about what we do, what
Yeah.
we say,
Mm-hmm.
how we use our talent. So I just want to note that as kind of a testament and appreciation for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I appreciate you and I appreciate this space. So, oh, great. So, we want to leave listeners with, yeah, this fun but also very real task of strength spotting. It's our continual homework from episode 1 to episode 111 here today of looking for strengths in the people around you, putting that your knowledge and this language, kind of keeping it at the forefront, putting it to the test by maybe applying it to some fictional characters. I had a whole lot longer list than we got to get to today, but I love that we were trying to figure out like what's a common show or a common thing that we could rely on that we both know fairly well. And so I'm glad that we went with The Office. So, but hopefully, even if you haven't watched The Office, it allowed you to get at a little bit of what we're recommending here today. So we hope that you put this to the test. I hope that you employ this just for a fun way to engage with strengths language. If there's somebody that, or like a character or a show that you're like, gosh, I wonder what they think about it, let us know. As we mentioned at the beginning, drop it in the comments of our Instagram post. Let us know what you're thinking. We will certainly bring that up in the next episode. We always love when people engage with the questions. And then beyond the fictional character space, we also want to encourage you, just like Allie did with Croy. I always have to think through that when you say his name and drop the la before it. But Croy, your plane mate, um, just like she did with Croy, look for strengths in the people around you. Like it's always a gift to see someone from that perspective, as we learned from Don Clifton. So without further ado, we want to thank you so much, so very much for tuning in at episode 111 of Genn and Millie. If you enjoyed today's conversation, consider sharing this episode with a friend. We'd love to hear your responses to the questions that you posed in this episode, and one of the best ways to do that is by engaging with us on Instagram at Genn and Millie. That's at GENNANDMILLIE. Until next time.